Welcome to Indian Anatomist. Individuals who want to pursue a career in medicine are welcome to check out the YouTube channel, Indian Anatomist. Today's lesson is part of ongoing lecture series, and the subject is General Anatomy 5. Hello students, hope all are doing well. Today we're going to discuss about the general anatomy of muscular system. Before entering into the topic, let us discuss about the tissues of human body. What are the different types of tissues found in human body? Why is it named as tissues? In Latin, the meaning of tissue is to weave. Weaving is a widely recognized technique involving the interlacement of threads, yarns, or fibrous materials to produce a fabric or sheet. Like the various tissues present in the human body demonstrate intricate interactions with several organs and organ systems. Types of tissues in human body are: Number 1. Epithelial tissue. 2. Connective tissue. 3. Muscular tissue, and 4. 1 is nervous tissue. All these tissues are interconnected with each other. Now coming to muscular system. It is composed of muscle tissues, made of muscle fibers or cells. They are highly specialized to contract, or shorten to produce when stimulated. All muscle cells are grouped into bundles called muscle fascicles. Now, numerous muscle fascicles forms muscle. Muscular system works to control the movement of the body and internal organs. Finally, muscle tissue when organized together facilitate organized movements of the body. Why it is named as muscle? The term muscle originates from the Latin word mus, which translates to mouse. Why is a muscle known as mouse? Reason being that most of the skeletal muscle of human body consist of muscle belly and a tendon, which together resemble the body and tail of a mouse, respectively. Size and location of muscle tissue helps to determine the shape of our bodies. 40 to 50% of mass of the human body is composed of muscle tissue. All the muscles of human body are developed from embryonic mesoderm or mesenchyme. Except erector pylorem of skin, muscle of iris, and myoepithelial cells of glands are developed from ectoderm. Classification of muscles. There are 3 distinct categories of muscles, based on their morphology and function. They are: 1. Skeletal or voluntary or striped muscles. 2. Smooth or involuntary or unstriped muscles. And 3 is cardiac muscle, is an intermediate muscle tissue lies between the skeletal and smooth muscle. Dear students, is there any other contractile tissues present in our body? Yes. Other contractile tissues of human body are: 1 is myoepithelial cells, seen in ducts of salivary, lacrimal, mammary, and sweat glands. And the other is myofibroblast. They are modified epithelial cells contains contractile proteins, involved in wound healing. Students, from now, I am going to describe the features of skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscle. First is skeletal muscle. As the name implies, these muscles are attached to the skeletal system. It plays a vital role in facilitating the movements of the skeleton. The peripheral nervous system is responsible for the regulation of skeletal muscle contraction and movement. Skeletal muscles are susceptible to voluntary control. The primary structural unit of muscle is the muscle fiber or cell, characterized by its multiple nuclei or multinucleated cells, present immediately deep to sarcolemma, that is, subsarcolemmal position. Under the microscope, muscle fibers display cross striations, indicating the arrangements of contractile proteins. Let us discuss about the structure of skeletal muscle. Each skeletal muscle in our body is surrounded by a thick connective tissue covering, called epimysium. Inside these muscle contains many muscle bundles or fascicles that are surrounded by moderate connective tissue covering, called perimysium. Now, within the fascicle, many skeletal muscle fibers, or cells present, which are surrounded by thin connective tissue membrane called endomysium. Each elongated skeletal muscle cells or fibers contain elongated microfibers, called myofibrils, that is encircled by contractile proteins, mainly the actin and myosin. This is the schematic illustration showing the arrangements of connective tissue coverings of the muscle tissue. From inside to outside are endomysium or the primary covering for muscle cell, perimysium or the secondary covering for fascicle, and epimysium or the tertiary covering for each muscle. At last, the tertiary covering creates a muscle's tendon, which is attached to the bone. Functionally, the skeletal muscle fibers are classified into red and white fibers. The red muscle fibers, also called as slow twitch fibers, are comparatively thin, darker in color and slower in contraction. They are red in color, is due to the presence of myoglobin in the sarcoplasm. Mitochondria are more numerous in red fibers, but sarcoplasmic reticulum is less extensive. This sarcoplasm contains more glycogen. They can go on contracting for prolonged durations without fatigue. On the other hand, white muscle fibers, are also called fast twitch fibers, are bigger, lighter, have less mitochondria, no myoglobin, and contract more quickly. Since the white fibers get most of their energy from anaerobic glycolysis, they get tired quickly when doing hard work, because they build up a lot of lactic acid. Functions of skeletal muscle: keeps body position, controls the body's temperature, controls how the body moves. It keeps the organs inside the body from getting hurt and gives delicate organs and tissues support. Gives the body places to go in and out. Gives the mouth, urinary tract, and anal opening a sphincter. Dear students, now I am going to discuss about the smooth muscle. What is smooth muscle? Smooth muscle is one of the three types of muscle tissue in the human body. Unlike skeletal muscle, smooth muscle doesn't have striations, and cannot be controlled by the person, that is involuntary in nature. These muscles are controlled by the autonomic nervous system, so its contraction and relaxation are unconscious or involuntary. What are the characteristics of smooth muscle? 1. Location: situated in walls of hollow organs like GIT, urinary system, respiratory system, reproductive system, CVS. 2. Structure: that each smooth muscle cells are spindle-shaped and have a single central nucleus. Its length ranges from 20 to 200 microns. 3. Contraction: wise they are slower and sustained, compared to skeletal muscle. 4. Function: is to do the physiological process, regulation of blood flow and pressure, and many more. 5. Regulation of both neural and hormonal functions. Finally, plasticity: the smooth muscles have the ability to stretch and maintains over a wide range of lengths. Now, we are going to make a discussion about the last type of muscle, that is cardiac muscle. One of the three types of muscle tissue in the human body is cardiac muscle, which is also called heart muscle, or myocardium. Cardiac muscle is different, because it is in between skeletal and smooth muscle. It has striations like skeletal muscle, but it works automatically or involuntarily like smooth muscle. Here are some key features and characteristics of cardiac muscle, are: characteristic features of cardiac muscle. Number 1. Striations. Like skeletal muscle, this muscle also has striations but faint when compared to skeletal muscle, indicates the uniform arrangements of contractile proteins. Number 2 is involuntary control, meaning is automatic contraction and relaxation occurs without consciousness. Beating of heart is due to regulated cardiac conduction system and autonomic nervous system. Number 3 is intercalated disc. These are cell junctions, connect all cardiac muscle cells, allowing quick electrical communication between nearby cells to coordinate heart's contraction. Number 4. Branching pattern. Important feature: cardiac muscle cells are highly branched, and joined with each other. Number 5 is nuclear shape and position, flattened, or oval-shaped nucleus. Number 6, energy requirements. Cardiac muscle requires lot of energy, due to its constant contraction and pumping. Energy comes from aerobic metabolism, so, it has lots of mitochondria and myoglobin. Number 7 is autorhythmicity. This muscle has its own built-in pacemaker, that is sinoatrial node, which generates impulses to trigger cardiac contractions. Number 8 is strong contractions. Strong cardiac muscle contractions pushes the blood throughout the entire circulatory system. The autonomic nervous system and hormones are responsible for the control contraction strength. Finally, number 9 is the cardiac cycle. Cardiac muscle contracts and relaxes in a cyclic manner, called cardiac cycle, to pump the blood into the arteries, and fills the heart chambers. Schematic picture showing the 3 types of muscles in human body. But these are microscopic pictures. The above panels are illustrative, and down panels are original histology pictures. Dear students, please note the yellow arrows, indicating the cross striations in both skeletal and cardiac muscles. At the same time, the black arrows are indicating the intercalated disc of cardiac muscle fibers. The space between the 2 intercalated disc is called one sarcomere. Very important, find the branching pattern of cardiac muscle fibers. Finally, note the smooth muscle, whose cells appears as spindle with centrally placed single, oval nucleus. Dear students, skeletal muscles are big, and can be seen with the naked eye, which means there is a lot to learn about them. So far, I have talked about the characteristics of all 3 types of muscles, mostly in terms of how they work and how they look inside, or microscopically. Now, let's talk about the parts and classifications of skeletal muscles in the human body. There are 2 functional parts, or ends for skeletal muscle. Number 1 is origin, is one of the muscle end, which remains fixed during its contraction. And number 2 is insertion, other end of muscle, which moves during its contraction, or action takes place. Now coming to anatomical parts of skeletal muscle, there are 2 anatomical or morphological parts for skeletal muscle. They are 1. Fleshy part, it is fully made of muscle tissue, and can contract. It's also known as a muscle belly. And 2 is fibrous part, is stiff, and don't stretch. They look like cords or ropes, and are also called tendons. Occasionally, the tendons become flattened, here and there in our body called aponeurosis, or simply called flattened tendon. Good examples are aponeurosis of epicranius muscle of scalp, biceps brachii muscle, and diaphragm are few examples. Dear medicos, the skeletal muscles in our body are classified according to their shape and their actions. According to their shape, the muscles are classified under the following. 1. Flat muscles, the muscle fibers are flat and parallel, so the tendon also becomes flattened, that is, aponeurosis. The examples are anterior abdominal wall muscles. 2. Strap muscles, the muscles appear flat, slender, and longer. Example is rectus abdominis, sartorius, and infrahyoid muscles. 3. Digastric, here, di means 2, gastric means belly, so the muscle has 2 bellies with an intervening tendon. Example is digastric or omohyoid muscle. Number 4 is pinnate muscle, the fascicle of muscle fibers that attach obliquely to its tendon, appears as a feather of a bird. It is further classified into unipinnate muscle, only one side the muscle fascicles arises from the tendon, example is extensor digitorum longus. Bipinnate muscle, both the side of tendon gives attachment to obliquely oriented muscle fascicle. Example is flexor hallucis longus, rectus femoris, and dorsal interossei of hand and foot. And the third variety is multipinnate muscle. The beautiful example for multipinnate is deltoid muscle. In this type, the muscle fascicles arises from different direction of the same tendon. Number 5 is Fusiform muscle, the muscle fibers and fascicles are spindle-shaped, with broader portion of muscle belly in the center, with tapered ends. Example is biceps brachii. Number 6 is quadrate muscle, the muscle appears as quadrangular, have 4 equal sides. Example, pronator quadratus. Number 7, circular or circumpennate muscle, the muscle fascicles are oriented in the form of circle. These are present around the body orifice or openings. Example, orbicularis oculi. 8 is spiral muscle, the muscle fascicles are twisted, mostly closer towards its insertion. Examples are pectoralis major and supinator. Finally, the 9th one is multi-headed muscle, muscles have more than one head of attachment. Example, biceps, the 2-headed muscle, triceps, the 3-headed muscle, and quadriceps, 4-headed muscles. Now, I am going to discuss about the second type of skeletal muscle classification, with respect to its action. According to their action, the muscles are classified under the following. 1. Prime movers, main muscle responsible for particular movements. 2. Antagonists, the muscles, which oppose the prime movers. 3. Fixators, stabilize the position of a joint, to provide fixed base on which other muscles can act. 4. Synergists, helps the prime movers in bringing the movement. Next is neuromuscular junction. When studying the skeletal muscles, it is essential to have an understanding of the nerve supply that the skeletal muscles get. The somatic nervous system governs voluntary muscular movements and supplies skeletal muscles. Motor neurons send information from the brain and spinal cord to contract skeletal muscles. At the neuromuscular junction, one motor neuron supplies each skeletal muscle fiber. Students, how the neuromuscular junction works. The neuromuscular junction is a highly specialized synapse, formed between a motor neuron and a muscle fiber. These junctions convert the electrical impulses generated by the motor neuron into electrical activity in the muscle fibers. Once the action potential or nerve impulse enters a motor neuron, calcium enters the presynaptic end, that release the neurotransmitters. Now, the neurotransmitters cross the synaptic cleft and bind to their specific receptors present on the surface of the muscle fiber. This initiates the muscle action potential, that results in the muscle contraction or relaxation. Dear students, what is muscle stretch reflex? When skeletal muscles are stretched beyond their physiological limits, the muscle stretch reflex or myotatic reflex makes them more contractile. The muscular stretch reflex requires knowledge of extrafusal and intrafusal muscle fibers. Now, what are they? Most muscle tissue is made of extrafusal muscle fibers, which generate force and are supplied by gamma motor neuron. Whereas, the intrafusal muscle fibers are located within the muscular tissue and contain afferent or sensory receptors that exhibit a response to stimuli related to stretching. The intrafusal fibers also contains contractile proteins. The intrafusal fibers are, again, classified into 3 types. They are 1. Nuclear bag fibers, have central region where the nuclei are densely packed, resembling a bag. They are more sensitive to changes in muscle length. 2. Nuclear chain fibers, have nuclei arranges in a chain-like fashion, along the length of the fiber. They are more sensitive to the rate of change in muscle length. And finally, number 3 is static nuclear bag fibers. These are a variation of nuclear bag fibers, and are sensitive to the static length of the muscle. All intrafusal fibers are innervated by sensory nerve endings and play a crucial role in the stretch reflex. This schematic picture showing the pathway of stretch muscle reflex. When a muscle containing muscle spindles are stretched, these intrafusal fibers are also stretched. This stretching activates the sensory nerve endings wrapped around the intrafusal fibers, generating nerve impulses that travel to the spinal cord. From the spinal cord, motor neurons in the anterior horn send their axons to the extrafural fibers of skeletal muscles, which makes the muscles contract. Dear students, we are at the final stage of general anatomy of muscular system. And the last topic to discuss in skeletal muscle is Golgi tendon organ. This is more or less similar to that of muscle spindles, or intrafusal muscle fibers. Golgi tendon organs, also called as neurotendinous spindles, are sense organs that are close to the points where muscles and tendons meet. They watch how much strain is put on the tendon when muscles contract, and keep it from getting damaged by too much stress. The Golgi tendon organs are made up of collagen fibrils that are loosely arranged and covered by a fibrous capsule. These collagen fibrils, or intrafusal tendon fibers, are innervated by myelinated nerve fibers. These fibers lose their myelin coat before they pierce the spindle's capsule and end in club-shaped ends. Like intrafusal muscle fibers, these are also end in spinal cord through dorsal root ganglia, and terminates in the anterior gray horn containing motor neurons of spinal cord. From this, the motor neurons arises, and finally stimulates the extrafusal muscle fibers for contraction. My dear medicos, the general anatomy of muscular system is completed. Reading and understanding the general topics are very important before entering into either regional or systemic anatomy. Hope you all enjoyed the session. Please watch further videos. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. Good day all.